you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Good morning and welcome to the November the 28th edition of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and we are absolutely delighted to have you to be on board with today's program. Now, we would like for you to be a participant in today's program, and you can do that by doing this, by calling this number, 516-453-9921. And you can listen to the show, or if you have a question or comment, and please make it brief, just push the number 1 button, and then when the person on the other end, this call screener, gets online, and make sure you give the call screener your name, and then we'll go with that, okay? Yeah. Do that. And if you are a new caller, make sure that you tell the call screener that you are a new caller, and we have a special thing set up for you that you can be heard, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, there are other ways you can get in contact with the show is by my Gmail address, and that is the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, MRBOBBY, at gmail.com. You do that, and I will get that. I will usually give you a symbol that I have received it. Now, it probably will not be read on today's program, but at a certain point in time, particularly when the call volume is not real strong, it could possibly be read. I try to make sure that I incorporated 2 or 3 into each show, but at some point it will be read, and then I will inform you of that, and you can be aware of that and tune in. Some people really like to listen to their question and the response that Mr. Fuller has to their question. And the third way is by getting into the chat room, and you do that by doing this. You go to blogtalkradio.com, and you want to make sure that you click on the programs menu. And then when you do that, programs, then the show menu will come up. And the show that you want is the Produce Justice Show. You click on that, and a box forms for you to enter into the chat room, and then there you have it. So those are the 3 ways that you could get into the chat room and do your thing there. Now, when you're in there, though, do not ask me a question to ask Mr. Fuller. That's what the Gmail is for, and the main number that you can call to get in, and the phone lines are open. So make sure that you get in there as people are getting into the or on the phone line. So that's very, very good. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, I can do that and do this. Okay, now all the materials that you can obtain on this show, or talked about on this show, spoken about by Mr. Fuller, can be obtained by going to producejustice.com. That is producejustice.com. So you keep that in mind. And if anything else comes up, I will let you know. And before I get started here, because I see that some have doing that, to the gentleman in Canada, Victor, you did write me. So I just want you to know that this wasn't whatever you said was going on. That was me that responded back to you. So it wasn't no computer or whatever that thing is. But anyway, there you go. So now you know. Okay. Now it is time for me to introduce Mr. Fuller. So first of all, let me say good morning to you, Mr. Fuller, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Okay, so the world has been introduced to Mr. Fuller, and at this time we have a section that we have the thoughts and expressions on the mind of Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, today being the last Tuesday in the month of November of 2023, what is on your mind that is of some interest?
Well, I was going to clean up something that I said several weeks ago about forgiveness. I said something about what I would forgive the white supremacists for and what I would not forgive them for doing. These are the enemies of non-white people in the system of white supremacy. What the white supremacists, those people that believe in mistreating people based on color, what they should be forgiven for and what they shouldn't be forgiven for. And I made a judgment that I think needs to be corrected, and that is, I'm not in position to forgive or not to forgive. I don't know that much about the universe. Everything about compensatory or counter-racist logic should be based on what's the best thing to do about every situation. So the question is, I can put it in simple language for me and for everybody else, that listens to this program, this word forgiveness. How much do you know enough to forgive or not to forgive? And I came to the conclusion that probably the best thing to say, because it certainly applies to me on second thought, is that I'm not in position to forgive anybody of anything. And I'm not in position, not qualified, to not forgive anybody of anything. I just don't deal with forgiveness at all. That's not my department. I don't have that much intelligence. What I do, according to compensatory logic, being reasonable, that's what compensatory logic is, being logical, doing the best thing that I can do with my feeble mind and body, is that just figure out what the correct thing to do in every situation and do it and move on to the next situation that needs correction. And you don't even have to think about forgiveness or not forgiveness at all. Just do every day. That's the day that you have. You're born into the world with time and energy. Just use all of your time and all of your energy to correct things that need to be corrected. Do the best that you can in every situation, in every minute, every second that you have. Just use it to get the most constructive result. Just keep that focus in mind right from this moment on, if you haven't been doing it before. What can I do that will have the most constructive result about this situation that just came up right this minute? What is the most constructive thing that me or anybody else on the planet or anybody else in existence anywhere can ever do? Ask yourself that. Can I do it? Or at least try to do it, and then do it, or at least try to do it, the most constructive thing. You don't have to think about yesterday. Think about this moment. You can take yesterday into consideration always, because that's history. History is one fraction of a second ago. Just whatever happened, then look at it and say, okay, it happened, or it's in the process of happening, I'm witnessing something. Now, what do I need to do about it? How do I fit in to what I'm looking at right this minute? And what needs to be done? And then, if you can, as fast as you can, do it. Or find somebody who can help you to do it, or they can do all of it, and then do that. And you don't have to think about forgiving somebody or not forgiving somebody. Just go on to what needs to be done right now and see if you can do it. And keep all your plans as simple and as tight as you can. Don't do a whole lot of stuff that doesn't need to be done, or involve yourself in a whole bunch of stuff that needs to be done. We're in desperation time. When I say we, most of the people on the planet have a desperate situation. So we should act like it and simplify every problem that comes up. Ask yourself what you can do to come up with a solution. Solutions means the most constructive result that you can possibly come up with, as fast as you can come up with it, and then move on to the next problem, because it seems like there's going to be a lot of them ahead. And they're going on now, and with most people, try to simplify everything, strip down to the bare essentials, take care of those, don't even think about luxury, just breathing and getting into the next day without adding a whole lot of burdens to yourself. That's a luxury now. Just trying to do that. If you can do that, consider yourself very, very well off. In fact, you're rich. If you can handle just the problems that you have been trying to handle. If you get to the place where you can handle them as simply and as fast as you possibly can, and say, when I go to bed at night, I can get at least for tonight, I can get an excellent night's sleep.
Yeah.
And to walk around thinking about who to forgive and who to not forgive, don't carry anything around like that. None, zero.
Okay. Do not carry it around, forgiveness. Okay. All righty. That was the thoughts and expressions on the mind of Neely Fuller this morning. Again, the call-in number to this show is 516-453-9921. Make sure you press the number 1 button. Mr. Fuller, I'd like to go back to Gmail that was addressed a little while ago. I think it was last month. This person wrote and said this, Dear Mr. Fuller, I'm from the UK, and I wrote to you in May in regards to the new film by Martin Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon, about the Osage people in Oklahoma being murdered for oil. Well, today I watched the movie in cinema, and everything you had said was in the movie. The Osage came from Missouri, Arkansas, and arrived in Oklahoma, which was a dust bowl with no fertile land for farming. As you know, they made a fortune in oil. Now, in the movie, they were dressed in fine clothing and drinking whiskey. The white men and the white women were polite and extremely deceptive. The Osage people were suffering from diabetes due to a bad diet, and they were blindly taking medication from the white people, etc. I was deeply confused why the Osage women in the movie were having sex and marrying white men openly. Even their tribal leaders, Mr. Fuller, were okay with it. Didn't they want the land and money to stay in their own community? Now, I don't understand why the Osage men let their women have sex and marry white men openly. Why was this? Were the Osage people really that naive? It was so obvious that they were being murdered for oil. I have my own questions. The white supremacists were deceptive, excellent, sweet talkers, giving them whiskey and pulling the wool over their eyes. Mr. Fuller, still reading, have you seen this movie, or what do you think about this? And lastly, Mr. Fuller, excuse me. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
Okay, and lastly, Mr. Fuller, please share more, if you can, about the Osage people and their oil and your family members who were part Native Americans in their involvement with the oil. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, for your time.
If you understand white supremacy, you understand all of that, which is why people should read the textbook. Just go to the textbook. And like the caller said, that these are the things I've been saying before this movie was made, I guess. It's a recent movie. But if you understand white supremacy, you understand all of that. They just did it. They're still doing it. I mean, they're doing it with black people, all people of color, right as we speak right this minute. They're still doing that same thing. That's not something like ancient history. They're doing it right this minute. The same thing everywhere, over and over and over again. And so in answer to the question, it means that non-white people have never understood white supremacy. That's the answer to the question. Why did they do it? They didn't understand white supremacy. They did not understand white supremacy. People do not knowingly do something that's going to harm them if they understand what harm is. But see, you can think that you're improving yourself when you're not. People do it every day in a whole lot of just in simple things because you weren't suspecting anything to be harmful. We sit and eat food all day. It's called food. This is something that came about through artificial intelligence. That's just a new term that goes back a long ways, that's all. But it just means doing the incorrect thing rather than the correct thing. So we have had a whole lot of what you call Thanksgiving dinners, celebrating even today something that was bogus, according to a lot of scholars, in the first place. It was people being deceptive. Well, let's all sit down and have dinner together, and we'll make peace. And then we'll eat and drink and be merry. And while we're drinking, we're going to drink some poison here called firewater. And then we're going to be in a loving situation forever after. Now, there's nothing new about that. Fooling somebody when you're not telling them that you are fooling them. That's happening right this minute. Everywhere. With black people who have a record, they can show it to you on paper, of being highly intelligent. But if you don't understand white supremacy, you're not intelligent about nothing.
Yes.
That's according to the code.
in the code book. And that's why I put it in the front of the book.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, you're not going to understand anything about Osage Indians and their condition and the words that were used to steal the oil that was right under their feet, and the words that were used to steal everything else when they weren't actually slaughtering them. See, the white supremacists do two things. If they can't fool you, they'll kill you. It's real simple. Boom, bam. Simple. I'm going to tell you something and get you to believe it. I love you. Marry me. Whatever. And they've taken everything from you just when they said those first three words.
Mm-hmm.
They have completely taken advantage of you. All right?
Yes, sir.
They're doing it right there. And when they say that, they don't mean a word of it. Say, but I'm real good at making you think I love you. You're not good at it figuring out what I'm doing at all. And so you'll say, oh, he told me he loved me. Oh, that's a wonderful thing. Say one thing, do another.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I have to laugh because every time you say that, it reminds me of something that you've said on many shows. What I think the name of that song, I Told You That I Love You, Now Get Out.
Now get out. I told you that I loved you, now get out. They're telling black people that right now. Every minute. I mean, it ain't just the Osage Indians and Cherokees and Choctaws and all that. Hey, that was a piece of cake.
Yeah.
I mean, what all of the Indian tribes knew is that the only beef I can probably have with you is that you are not a member of my tribe. So you have strange ways of doing things. I'll try to understand them as best I can. But sometimes we'll have wars among ourselves. The white supremacists pick that up in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
They say, we're going to exploit that. We're going to exploit that all the way. I mean, we know all about that type of thing because we've done it among our white folks. We've done that over and over again and still doing it. Even to this day. They have flare-ups, but we understand that tribal thing. So we get people who go at each other all the time, and then we grab everything while they're going at it.
While they're going at it.
That's our formula. Right.
Okay. All right.
Black people right now killing each other right out there in the street. And the white supremacists are taking everything from them, what's left after the shooting.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to, I have an email for that, what you just said, but we'll get to that a little bit later. All righty, let's go to the phone lines, and we are going to travel up to Buffalo where Ryan is there, and let's see if we can do this, Mr. Ryan. Okay, Ryan, you're on, Mr. Fuller. Good morning, and what is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, real quick question. Is being codified the same thing as being organized?
Sure. But you're organizing a person within themselves. That's the difference. Black people are used to working in packs. In other words, guessing about what's going to happen, and leave just do this and do that. Leave all the thinking to somebody else. Codification means you are an army of one. You are one individual that should be a universal man or a universal woman. So you have no confusion there. And you would do your very best and your best will be, you might say, good enough. Find the best thing to do and do it as an individual person.
Mm-hmm.
And stop looking around for everything. Somebody else will take care of that, which is what we're used to. Oh, you're talking about solving a problem. Oh, well, you know, hey, man, don't be asking me. I mean, you better find you some white folks, because that's what I do. Any problem that comes up, I mean, you know, white folks take care of problems, man. We don't do that stuff. That's how we look at it. That's a bunch of stuff. What, solving problems? That ain't got nothing to do with us. We ain't no problem solvers. Get out of my face with that. I'm black. I don't solve no problems, man. You know, talk to some white people about that. You're wasting my time. Now, really, I mean, at a gut level, that's the way we are in 2023 worldwide. And in answer to the question, yes, become a problem solver and the only one on the planet. That is how every black person should look at it and look at themselves and start. And if you ain't qualified for that now, if you're not qualified, then start getting qualified. No, I want to be able to do everything that I possibly can do to solve every problem, not only for myself, but for everybody that I interact with. In other words, constructive results is all I'm about. And I am organized already, or I'm doing everything I possibly can to make that happen. You can drop me off in any town, and I know what to do. The minute I hit the ground, I know what to do about everything. I can go anywhere, walk in any factory and whatnot. And I say, I've been here before, even though I haven't been here before. Mm-hmm. I've been here before. I know what to do. I know what all these people in here, in every office, behind every door, sitting at every machine, I know what they're doing. And I can sit down, right, take their place at lunch break and do it. And that's what we're talking about, the way it ought to be. And that's what the codification, counter-racist science, is supposed to be. A black person, imagine you as a black person walking into any factory right now, anywhere in the world, in Garden City, Kansas, in Alaska, walk into any building, or walk across the desert in Egypt and say, I know where the food is. I'm in a desert. I'm in the Sahara. I'm in the middle of the Red Sea. Oh, you wake up and find yourself on a sail ship, a schooner. Different types of ships now. They are all alike. Steamships. That's different from a schooner, unless a schooner has sails. A schooner has sails. And it might have a combination, a motor and sails. But you already knew that when you woke up there. Somebody took you there while you were asleep. And you woke up on a schooner. When you walk out on deck, suppose you was able to say, now there's the main mast. A schooner has at least two masts. I already knew that. And I know what to do when I climb up on that pole that's got those sails on it. I know what to do in order to make this ship go in the direction that I want them to go in. I know just how much to roll up and how much to let play out.
All righty.
I hope I'm answering the question. Yes,
okay.
Organize. And you organize yourself as the entire world is in you. Stop looking over your shoulder talking about somebody else will do that. Suppose somebody else don't show up like they usually don't.
All righty. We're going to be organized right here and take a break. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you very much for your call. You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and we thank you for listening and tuning in as more people are doing that and joining the chat. And we thank you. To get in contact with the show, all you have to do is call 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button and wait for the call screener, and then make sure you give them your name, and then just get in line because our phone lines are jammed now, and that's a good thing. Let's see. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, MRBOBBY @gmail.com, and I will get that and inform you of that when I get it, and at a certain point in time, your Gmail will be read. And lastly, you can do like many people are doing, and it's growing, and that is the chat room. Go to blogtalkradio.com, and you want to click on programs. And when you get the program menu, then the show menu or shows will come up. You click that and stop at the Produce Justice show. That's the one you hit. You hit that, and then the chat box is there. Press that, and you are in. So that's good. All the books and materials that Mr. Fuller will be discussing or talked about can be obtained by going to producejustice.com. That is producejustice.com. And you can get that information right there, and even past shows are on there. I view it and listen sometimes to that, particularly when Mr. Fuller is on the Carl Nelson show, and I listen to that and review it. And we matter of fact, we talked about something that he said on the Carl Nelson show last week. So do that to be more informed. Okay, look at that chat room growing there. Okay, I think that is it. So let's see here. Yeah, they're coming in here really good here. Okay, let's get Cleo. Cleo, going down to Houston. Yeah, my man down there, Dr. Marcus D. Cosby at the Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. Good man down there. Cleo, give us some this morning, brother. Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Long live NFJ and forever live Logic. So grateful for you, Mr. Bobby. Robert sharing the Moon Pie, the entire CRTS crew for your ongoing partnership with Mr. Fuller in this very important life work. Mr. Fuller, you stated that as a non-white person in need of things in the system of white supremacy, we should ask the white supremacists for it, accept what is granted, and compensate for the difference. Can you provide an example in the people area activity of labor, whereby, let's say, we're in the need for a raise, and we're following that protocol? What would it look like to compensate for the difference when you're not given what you need to meet the needs of your family?
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Oh, you find that out. That's just a procedure. Ask for what should be given. Accept what is granted. And compensate for the difference. The difference between what? What you asked for and what you were given. What you were granted. In other words, you asked for $10. You were given $5. Now you got to compensate by figuring out yourself how you're going to get that other $5. Well, compensatory logic means since you didn't have the 10, you compensate after you ask one source or try to get it from one source, you try to get the other 5 from somebody else. Now, if somebody else will say, oh, I'll give you $5, because you said you needed 10, you got 5 from somebody else. I'm not going to give you 5 unless you do this in my behalf. The other person gave it to you. Said, just consider it a gift. $5. Say, yeah, but I need 10. Well, you have to get that from somebody else because that's all I can afford to give you. Okay? So you go to somebody else and ask them the same thing. Whomever can help you the most. But they say, I'm not just going to give you $5. You are going to have to, since you do plumbing work, you're going to have to fix my faucet. Say, well, I can't do it today. Say, well, when can you do it? Well, I'll do it next week because I'm so tied up. I'm up against it right now. Say, oh, okay, so we'll make that kind of deal. In other words, that's the law of compensation. You can't get something done from one source. You just keep on keeping on until you find the source of whatever you can get that you're trying to get. You compensate. You compensate all the time. And there's illustrations in the front of the book. When you put on a pair of glasses, you're compensating. Compensating for what? For not being able to see well without them. You compensate all the time. Every minute that you're breathing. When you breathe out, you're compensating for having breathed in. The next breath that you take, it's a process. Now, when you inhale, you exhale. That's compensation for having inhaled.
Mm-hmm.
You get rid of the bad air and take in air that will build you up. Air that will build you up. When you exhale, you're getting rid of the air that will make you unhealthy. But the process has to go back and forth, forth. And you keep doing that. And you keep doing that back and forth when you interact with your environment, with all the molecules in your body are interacting that way. Taking in what works and getting rid of what doesn't work.
Yes, sir.
And then taking in what works, and it's back and forth, back and forth. It's called compensation. That's why the compensatory code is called that. You're compensating all the time. You just find the best way of going about doing it, the most constructive way. Now, you can get out there and try to get your $10 by doing what? You shot somebody to death and hope that nobody finds out. That's not the way to do it.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Cleo, down there in Houston. Yeah. If you get by the Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church, tell Dr. Cobb I said hello. Thank you, Cleo. All right, let's go up to Canada, and now we're going to go to Victor. All right, Victor in Canada, what is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Oh, hi, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, you're talking about compensating for what was lost or not given or not made for request. You made a request to the racist white supremacists, and you're trying to compensate. I remember you were saying that there was a time when you were back in Tuskegee, Oklahoma, and your father had businesses like a restaurant.
Muskogee, not Tuskegee.
Muskogee. Yeah, Muskogee. And the town was dying. And I wanted to know, was your father still alive when the town was dying, or did he already pass? And what did you do to compensate when the town was dying, and then you had to go and join the military in order to support yourself? I have two questions.
Yes, well, that first question is what did I do at the time? I don't understand the question, which I have that habit of not understanding the question. Can you ask that first part again? Hello? Can you hear me?
Victor? He said Mr. Fuller asked.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Fuller, what I was trying to ask you, when you were back in your hometown and the town was dying because the white supremacists were switching people around.
The town was dying. Yes, the town was dying.
Yeah, and then you had to join the military in order to support yourself. Was your father still alive? And then
no.
Okay.
No, he died.
And then,
he died at the same time during the same period that the town was having its worst period ever.
And what did you do to compensate? I heard that you had to join the military.
Yes, I compensated by joining the military. I no longer had an income that would sustain myself and the people that was working for me under, the people that were helping me running the business. But the business couldn't run on empty. Meaning what? You have to have customers that could pay you. My customers could not pay me because they weren't making money. So they were coming in and eating and sleeping and whatnot on credit. They had been doing that for some time. At the time my father died, trying to hold the black side of town together. But how do you do that? If you're running a cafe, a hotel, 47 rooms, and you have a barber shop and a beauty parlor, you have a small grocery store, you have a pool hall. These were businesses that my father had for years when the town itself, including the white section, was prosperous. But the whole town, including the white section, was slowly dying. It was slowly dying. For anybody that went there, that wasn't a place of great opportunity like it had been when my father got there from Arkansas by mostly walking and riding freight trains.
Yes, sir. Okay. All righty. All right, thank you there, Victor from Canada. Okay. It's called doing what you got to do. All righty.
Yes.
Here's the man. Here's the man right here. This is the man from the Yo. Everybody know what that is now around the world. All right, Talif. What you got for us today, Talif? Go ahead, brother. Yes, sir.
Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller, top of the morning to you. Mr. Fuller, I got a question, but I want to play something. If hopefully you guys can hear it. I want to know if you should avoid, before you answer, though, I want to play something for you, but I want to know if you can avoid questions that you don't know the answers to. Now, this is going to be coming from a guy who's a comedian, but I'm going to play this video, Mr. Fuller, real quick. Hopefully I can get it in and you can hear it, and then I want you to reply. Let me play it real quick. Hopefully you can hear it.
Like, women always have more questions than men have answers to. Great example of this. 6-7 months ago, I get a text one day. The text says, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. I walk into the kitchen where my wife is. I said, hey, I just got a text that please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. She said, was he driving? I said, I don't know. I just got a text that please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. Were Carol and the kids in the car with him? I don't know. I just got a text that please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. Were the people in the other car hurt? I don't know. I just got texted. Please pray for Tommy. He was in a bad wreck. What hospital did they take him to? I don't know. I just got texted. Please pray for Tommy. He was in a bad wreck. She said, well, you don't know anything. What do you know? I know you need to pray for Tom. I just got texted. He was in a bad wreck.
Okay, so Mr. Fuller, if you heard that, should you, because I know it happened to all of us. It just happened to me recently. I had a nephew that was killed, and all I know is I was told he was shot. I didn't have the answers to any questions that people were asking. So should you even avoid that, Mr. Fuller, even if it's something as detrimental as a family member passing? Should you avoid saying anything that you don't know anything about? And that was my question for you today. And I know the people in the chat room are probably going to go crazy. Mr. Bobby, I know you probably have experienced it. I experienced it a lot running a business. So, Mr. Fuller, should you avoid even saying anything to somebody until you get the questions to all the answers that you think they may ask? Because most of us just want to put that information out. So, Mr. Fuller, should you avoid that at all costs?
Avoid what would it that I be avoiding?
Questions. It's like he just said his wife asked him all those questions about the guy who was in the accident that he didn't have the answers to. So should you come in the house and say, baby, Bobby died today? She may have a million questions. So should you wait until you get any answers before you even put that information out?
Well, you always have to have information that you know that is accurate. So you have to make that judgment call based on your circumstances. First thing you do is just find out the truth. Now, the code is big on that. That's all.
Yes.
How do you find out the truth? You ask enough people, whichever way you find out anything. Like, it's like going to school. That's all that is. It's the same format. You get information that is correct, or you don't get, or it's not correct. And you do that by the usual procedure. They call it confirmation. They got different terms for it, but it just means making sure that you're getting correct information. And you do that by checking everything out that you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
Like putting a tire on a car. You don't start just doing stuff until you first say that, well, we have to have our tools, don't we? Yes. Then the next question is, well, what tools?
Yes.
And you don't go to the second one. You don't go looking for tools without knowing what tools you're looking for.
Yes.
It's just a procedure. For getting answers to questions. Yes. Mm-hmm. It's just a procedure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's okay.
Procedures always have to do with truth. That's all.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, Mr. Fuller, it's okay sometimes to say that you don't know. I don't know.
If you don't know, you say you don't know.
Exactly.
That's all. It's a very simple formula.
And it's the truth if you don't know.
Yes. I don't have enough information to change the tire on this car. Yeah. What tools do I need? If I've never seen a car before, I got a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somebody says, now this thing called a car has some wheels, and sometimes one of the wheels go bad. It's 4 of them. So this one has to have a new tire. Mm-hmm. And you say, well, what's a tire? So that's a question. That's the first question. So you first find out what a tire is. Mm-hmm. Say you have a wheel, but it doesn't have a tire. So what's a tire? Then somebody has to answer that question, and then you find out about the tools for getting the tire on the wheel on the tire. That's the way it works.
That's the way it works.
One question at a time.
Mm-hmm. And just for your information, Tariq, the question that you asked 2 weeks ago, and then you came in last week and asked that, it's still reverberating. I'm still getting a lot of mail on it, or Gmail on it, because you just asked the question, what do you mean by what you want, and there have been so many responses, to that. Personally, even though you didn't ask me, I agree with what you said, and it goes along with what Mr. Fuller just said. You need to know. You're asking questions about, what do you mean, whatever that might mean. What do you mean by that, so that you can get clarity. But some people had taken issue with that. It was a very good question, and one of the most profound questions that's been on this program, because there's been many opinions. But thank you anyway, Talif, for your contribution to the program. Appreciate it, bro.
Yes, sir. Not a problem.
Okay. All righty. Let's see here. Let's go to Brooklyn. And we're not talking about the vampire in Brooklyn either. We're talking about the sun. The sun in Brooklyn. Talk to us.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.
The question I have this morning, Mr. Fuller, is a white person that calls, is there different levels to being a white supremacist? Would you need more evidence of power or practice from a white person who calls themselves a white supremacist? Is that a label that we should use more frequently, or is it better to be safe? Is it better to be safe than to be sorry in regards to a white person who calls themselves a white supremacist, but you may not be able to identify how much power or how they're practicing racism in that moment, if that makes sense?
Well, first of all, if you're having a conversation with a white person and the white person tells you that they are a white supremacist, the codified procedure is to ask them what you expect of them as a white supremacist. They volunteered to tell you that, who they are, so you have your idea maybe about who they are and what that means. But to make sure that you're on the same page, that's number one. When you're communicating with anybody and you say, okay, well, what are you required to do in order to qualify as a white supremacist? Being a white supremacist calls for certain qualifications. And you say, what is that? You can just make a simple question like that. What's a white supremacist? Now, you already have in your mind maybe what that is. Or you may have never heard the term before. But when a person announces, presumably, who they are, a person can come and knock on the door and say, I'm the electrician. You say, what's an electrician? If you don't know, or you think you don't know. So if a person, but to be sure, that's what I would do in a codified way. I would say, what's a white supremacist, sir? And wait for the answer. Don't start telling them what I think. That's not the procedure. Just wait for the answer to that question. And then if you have another question, ask it. That's the compensatory codified way.
Yes, sir.
Ask questions. Why? Because it always works.
Always works.
Solving problems of any kind or getting anything done is a matter of what? And don't forget this. This is the most important thing. Questions and answers. And don't ever move from the first question into the second question until that first question is asked and answered fully. Mm-hmm. Never move to that second question until you get an answer to that first one.
All righty. Thank you, Toussaint from Brooklyn. Appreciate. Okay, let's hear Nicole. Get ready. Nicole from Maryland. You are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead.
Excuse me, I'm kind of under the weather. This is a question. Good morning, Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Okay, so currently in cities, due to cultural killing, self-killings due to white supremacy, finding a modern way to cause self-inflictions, eminent domain is the current way of taking land. As a universal fighter, I have done what my grandpa, Blackfoot Indian, predicted for me before I knew what he meant. With the words, we were hunting and fishing while they came on ships. Do not let my grandkids or my grandkids be no slaves in America. So thankful for the continued education of counter-racism with the ability to produce justice eventually. Like I asked political figures, what is the difference between segregated in the 80s and crack era compared to the red line or blighted so-called gentrifications currently? Asking for those maps so that universal glasses can see the injustice too. So I just thank you for the continued education, because I always refer back to Dr. Wilson, because they enslave you with symbols, so you have to always know how to crack code those symbols so that you can be able to be a universal person going in certain situations and being able to ask those questions so that that can be in the atmosphere, so that the atmosphere can see change. Thank you, Mr. Nita Fuller.
All right, Nicole, we'll put that under VGQ. Thank you for your call. All righty. Mr. Fuller, we have about 3 minutes. Let me see if I can get this in here. This is from Drake from the so-called United Kingdom. He said, Mr. Fuller, I would like to hear your thoughts and advice about how to deal with someone who refers to black people as a, quote, race, end of quote. As far as I'm concerned, we have never been a race and do not function as one. I would like your advice, especially as a number of people who call themselves, quote, mixed race, end of quote, or, quote, biracial, end of quote, try to tell us black people that we are a, quote, race, end of quote, in order to validate confusing terms like mixed race and biracial. Mr. Fuller, how do you best advise us to deal with a situation when someone says black people are a race? Thank you. Kind regards, Drake.
Well, you respond according to the code and what this program is all about. Your responses should be codified. You say, according to, this is how you answer, or this is how you see it. If people ask you or you're discussing it or whatnot, this whole thing about race, you say there's one race. That's the white race. According to, if they say, well, where do you get that information? You say according to compensatory logic or according to counter-racist logic. It's just one race, and that's the white race. If you're talking about color and people, that's what you're talking about. You know, you could talk about a horse race. That's a different thing altogether. Dog race, they have them. Auto race. They have all kinds of what they call races in that category. But if you're talking about the color of people and people being mistreated on the basis of color, that's race, racism. So you say there are only 3 categories of so-called race or racial matters when you're talking about people according to counter-racist logic. That's how you say it, like the code says. This is strictly according to counter-racist logic. You get different answers from different people. Depends on who you talk to and what their perspective is, what they have been told, or what they made up themselves. Mm-hmm. But according to what I'm saying, that's how I answer. That's what I wrote the book about. I say, according to the compensatory counter-racist code, which means something that makes sense to me, and that is, racially speaking, it's only one race, and that's the white race. Just one.
Okay.
But if you're talking about the broad categories, like they say, biracial, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you say, well, racially speaking, see, that's a different word from race itself. But racially speaking, broadly, it's white people, non-white people, and white supremacists. And the white supremacists are the only race. Other people are victims of white supremacy. They are not members of a race. Being a member of a race means you're a racist. That's the only thing it's good for. It ain't good for nothing else. And what is a racist? A racist is a person that mistreats people on the basis of color. And who does that more than anybody, and that is white people. So white people, they are the masters of anything that's racial, because that doesn't say that all white people are racist, but those who are. And they're the most powerful people on the planet. Now, why do I say that? Because that's the logical thing to say. And I say that anybody that sticks with that, you will have coherence. You'll be being truthful. The other thing is, if you say you're biracial, that's not telling the truth. There's only one race, white. If you're bi, that means you're white and something else, which is not. That something else has got to be what, logically speaking, non-white. That's why they say light-skinned Negro. Oh, yeah, that's a different type of person altogether. Altogether, than saying white. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that's been modified. Okay, if it's been modified, it ain't what it was. Mm-hmm. See, that's the logical way to look at it.
Yes, sir.
That's what we used to call it. Light-skinned black person. The person looks like they're white, but they're black. Lots of black people. I got them in my so-called family. Extended family. And I know dozens of them. A lot of them I forgot. Went to school and all like that. And I went to what they call an all-colored school. But you had brown people. Most black people on the planet are brown. People right now call each other what? Black and brown. Right now, you hear a whole lot of that. They say they got all these brown people coming across the southern border. Well, you got a whole lot of brown people who are already here who are called black. In Africa, you got black and brown people in the same tribe. One person in the tribe is darker than the person's mother. Now go figure that. When you put them the two side by side, say, I'm his mother. And the person ain't never been out of what you call Africa. Say, but I got a African child right here in the Zulus tribe. We ain't never been out of this village.
Wow.
You know, this is the mother and the son. The son is a little lighter than the mother. When you put them both together, standing side by side, they come and stand in the sun. It's high noon, plenty of sunlight, and you say, oh, the sun has brown skin, dark brown, very dark brown. But the mother, boy, she is midnight black. The son isn't. Then he'll have a sister, looks just like the mother, as far as what you call skin tone. You can look at your own family and see that. For all the black people right now, just look at them. If you're in a room where they are right now, just take a good, strong look. Everybody's not the shade of color.
Got to leave it there,
and
Mr.
maybe
Fuller.
they are.
Okay, thank you. We got to leave it there because we are way over. For those who will have to leave, sorry that we went over, but I didn't want to exactly interrupt Mr. Fuller from speaking. But we got to go so we can get to the second hour. So thank you for listening. We did make a few errors, and we'll try to do better. So hopefully you'll tune in next week. But for those who will be with us for the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show, stay with us as we do these last 53 minutes. Okay, until next week for the first hour, this is the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Stay tuned for the second hour, which will begin in 5 seconds. All righty, welcome back to the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. We would love for you to get in contact with the show, and all you have to do, you know the numbers, but for those who don't, 516-453-9921. You have a brief, and I do mean brief, question or comment. Make sure you press the number 1 button, and I'm going to emphasize, because we are pressed for time, please make it brief so that Mr. Fuller can understand it and answer the question. As you know, he uses examples to illustrate his point. So please, ma'am, please, sir, be brief with that, okay? All righty. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby. That's B-O-B-B-Y, Mr. M-R-B-O-B-B-Y at gmail.com. And I will get that, and then I will let you know, and it will be read at a certain time, but I don't think so today. At least that's what the staff is telling me. Okay, and then lastly, you may join the chat room, and it's in there. Good things in the chat room. Go to blogtalkradio.com, and you want to click on where it says programs, and when you get the program menu, you want to click that on, and then it will have a list of shows, and the show that you want, go all the way down until you see the Produce Justice show. Stop right there, click on that, and then the chat room icon is available for you to get in, and you can join the chat. Yes, you can. Join the chat. All righty. Okay, and the book that Mr. Fuller is talking about can be obtained by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. Okay, let's go back to the phone lines, and let's travel to Milwaukee. Let that 320 land right there in Milwaukee. And here we go, and that's be you, Mr. Corey. Wait a minute. Okay, Corey, yes. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning. Mr. Fuller, when I ask a fellow black person the 4 questions, starting with the first question, what do you want me to do, or what do you want me to say, or not do or not say, I'm oftentimes encountering the response, do what you want to do. and it becomes like a cyclical circle conversation that can easily lead to an argument. So my next step is to just stop the conversation. Have you experienced this response, Mr. Fuller, when you ask a fellow black person, what do you want me to do? And they say, do what you want. What is the codified reaction to this?
Another question. And that question is, now when I do this thing that I want to do, is there going to be a problem? That would be the question I would ask. See, I'd have a question. I asked a question, what did you want me to do? The person says, do what I want to do. Well, now, if I do what I want to do, will there be a problem if I do it? And from what source will the problem come from if I do what I want to do? See, because you want to know if the person is given, they've answered your question. And that's a real excellent answer. If a person says that to me, do what I want to do, then I will tell the person, I want to do this. First of all, I'd announce, oh, okay, I got the answer to that question. Now, I want an answer to this question. I got a question. After that first question, you answered me. Now, is there going to be a problem if I do what I want to do? And then I'll wait for them to answer that question. That's it. And I'm not going to guess about what the answer might be. That's another thing. You don't do no guessing. See, that's the magic of questions, answers. Questions, answers. Question number one, answer to number one. Question number two, answer to number two. Just keep doing that. You'll always get where you need to be. You won't get where you want to be, but you'll get where you should be. Because see, what's being revealed by that question and answer, and don't move to the second question until the first question is answered. That's always the procedure for all creatures, including animals, all day long, everywhere in the known universe. That's logic. Questions and answers. It'll always take everybody where they should be. Won't take everybody where they want to be, but it'll take everybody right where they should be. That's guaranteed. Question, answer. Question, answer. Until what? Till there are no more questions. Everybody ran out of questions.
Okay.
See, but that kind of response calls for another question.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to be the result? See, that's that bottom line. That's that fourth line.
Yes, sir.
I mean, somehow you all didn't get to that fourth line. But that's always, if you get frustrated, anybody gets lost or whatever, whatnot, what is going to be the constructive result after everybody does what they're going to do?
Uh-huh.
Whether they wanted to do it or didn't want to do it, or how they went about doing it. What's going to be the constructive result? Because that's what you're aiming for. Mm-hmm. When you ask any question, you're aiming for what is going to be the constructive result.
Yes, sir.
Now, somebody winds up saying there ain't going to be no constructive result. Now you go back to questions and answers again. Because that's what you're trying to get up. You're trying to always come up with a constructive result.
Okay.
Nothing but.
All righty. Drake over in the UK said thank you for answering his question. Thank you, Corey. Thank you very much. Remember, when you call in, don't forget to get the call screen of your name so it can pop up on my screen. This is Mr. Lacey here, Mr. Fuller, from the Gmail, said this, quote, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, end of quote. Mr. Fuller, I understand that some of these terms are compromised, but please bear with me. Should non-white people begin to explore allegiances, whether directly or indirectly, with whom the white supremacists fear and or declare their collective enemies be? Are there some things that are non-constructive for the racists that they have conditioned non-white people to believe would be non-constructive for them as well, but would be of maximum constructive value?
What's the question? Was there a question in there?
He said, should non-white people begin to explore allegiances, whether directly or indirectly, with whom the white supremacists fear and or declare their collective enemy to be?
Well, if I understand the question, victims of white supremacy ask white people to do one thing, like the title in one of Mr. Spike Lee's movies. Do the right thing. End the conversation. We don't need a long discussion. Now that's the title of a movie, okay? But the codified response is, if a black person is talking directly and indirectly to a white person in the system of white supremacy, you make one request. Replace the system of white supremacy, sir or ma'am, with the system of justice. And so that we'll be clear, sir or ma'am, justice means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. That's number one. And number two, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Sir.
Okay.
Or ma'am.
Or ma'am.
Do you understand what I just said? That's the codified procedure.
Yes, sir. All righty.
And that's all you have to do. All this stuff about alliances and who to talk to and who not to talk to, just say. Just say what it is. You're just telling what you want. You want to guarantee that no person is mistreated. How about that? You know anything about how to not mistreat people? All right. Now, these are the ad-libs and all like that. But just guarantee. That's all. When you're talking to white people, after they talk for 15 hours and you slept through the whole thing, when they wake you up, you can say, now, only thing I got to say about everything that's said, or wasn't said, because I slept through the whole thing. I'm going to tell you that now because that's the truth. But can you guarantee that no person is mistreated? That's question number one, so I'm going to wait on the answer. And that's what you do. And then after you get the answer to that first question, ask the second question. Can you guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help? And you just wait. And see, and even though you slept through a whole bunch of back and forth about alliances and forgiveness, and you don't have to go through all that. Codification is getting right to the point right fast. Slam dunk. No dribbling down the court. Slam dunks every time you touch the ball. That's what pure codification is about.
The last part of that, he says this, Mr. Fuller, are there some things that are non-constructive for the racist that they have conditioned non-whites to believe would be non-constructive for them as well, but would be of maximum constructive value.
Yes, that's a statement.
Actually, he had it as a question, but okay.
Well, was there a question? Maybe I missed. I'm always missing a question. Even though I'm saying questions and answers are the solution.
Right.
He said what?
He said, the second part, he said, are there some things that are non-constructive for the racists that they have conditioned non-whites to believe would be non-constructive for them as well, but would be of maximum constructive value?
Yes, I guess. But I'm saying, if I'm being asked, what do you do about that? You just ask the same thing over and over again. What can you do, or are you doing everything that you can do? If you're talking to a white person, like I said, and I slept through the question. When I wake up and say, do I have anything to say? I say, yes. If I'm talking to a white person, always, are you about the business as best you possibly can, sir or ma'am? Always be polite. Of guaranteeing that nobody is mistreated. That's the question. The white people everywhere, all over the world, any minute of any day. Or you see, that's what simple codification is about. See, dump a whole lot of the words that are completely unnecessary to get the job done. Getting the job done means just getting it done, the fastest and the most efficient way. So if it's about questions and answers, then when you're talking to a white person, the thing that you do is not scratch your head about every 5 minutes. I mean, what are everybody's thinking, what their intentions are. Just, sir or ma'am, are you doing or do you intend to do everything you can to guarantee that no person is mistreated?
Okay.
Question one. And after you answer question one, then try to answer two. Question number two, whatever that question will be. And the logical question is, can you guarantee, or are you trying to guarantee, or somebody you associated trying to get it done, or whatever those questions might be, it boils down to just getting it done, of guaranteeing that nobody is mistreated. That's all you want to know in any discussion with anybody about anything. And the next guarantee you want is for the person that needs help the most right that minute, getting the most constructive help.
The most constructive help,
yes, sir. Possibly be given. Just those two things. I mean, it doesn't call for 6 hours of marching or anything like that. Let's just sit down quietly and who can do the most to bring that about? And are you doing it?
And are you doing it? Okay.
And what has to be done? You can ask any kind of questions after that. But right out of the gate, get that straight in the beginning.
Yes, sir, in the beginning. Okay.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is guarantee that nobody is mistreated.
Okay. Nobody's mistreated.
Get that straight first.
Okay, new caller alert. New caller alert. Going way down in Orlando, Florida. Get ready, Cooper. New caller. Cooper is here. Wait a minute, Cooper. Let me see. Get this big boy to land right here. Okay, Cooper. The 330 has landed, and you are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hey, good morning. How you doing, Mr. Fuller?
I'm still learning.
Okay, absolutely. I have one question. I want to make it brief as possible. So in my generation, there is this popular fetish in the sexuality part, and it pretty much is about a black male who gets with a white woman and a white man and has sexual relations with the white woman. But in today's generation, that black male thinks that they are the man or they're getting the better end of that situation. Mr. Neely, is this true or not? And that is my question about it.
If you see that's what's going on, if a black male, I would say what compensatory code, counter-racist code, any non-white person having sexual intercourse with a white person during the existence of the system of white supremacy is making white supremacy stronger. That's the result. It's not weakening the system of white supremacy because it's under the system of white supremacy. It's making it stronger. Now, if there were no such thing as white supremacy, it would just be as they say in a slang way, an old cliche, boy meets girl. That's it. Having sexual intercourse, that's it. I mean, that's what's going on. It has no significance other than that, other than what significance it's always had. But if it's happening under the system of white supremacy, according to counter-racist logic, it is making the system of white supremacy stronger. Anytime a white person is having sexual intercourse, what we know as sexual intercourse, what's the effect? If it's happening under the system of white supremacy, it is making the system of white supremacy stronger, not weaker. Why? Because the white supremacists are in control of it. That's the key. If no white supremacy existed, it would just be, quote, unquote, in a slang way, boy meets girl. Wouldn't have any harmful effects at all, except, if the people are defective in some way, have some type of disease or something. But as far as the color is concerned of the people, it wouldn't mean anything. Nothing has meaning unless it has meaning. But in the compensatory, under the system of white supremacy, it's like a prisoner having sexual intercourse with the prison master. It's like the slave master having sexual intercourse with the slave. The slave is at a the slave is at a disadvantage in that type of arrangement, just like any prisoner of war is at a disadvantage, being taken advantage of, harmful advantage of the person who is a prisoner. That's the prison master. It's not an equal situation. So you make the situation equal before the sexual intercourse. That's the way that works. The prisoner is no longer a prisoner. Now the prisoner and the warden can have sexual intercourse because the prisoner is no longer a prisoner. But if the prisoner is having sexual intercourse with the warden while the prisoner is still a prisoner, that's not compensatory logic, and that's not constructive. That's destructive to the prisoner.
Okay. All righty. Christopher Cooper from Orlando, Florida, a new caller. don't be a stranger is what I say to all the new callers, and thank you. We're going to break it off right here. You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. In the remaining 29 minutes, call in. Here's the number right here, 516-453-9921. I think we have a few lines open, and we do have some people on hold, but that's the number you call in. Make sure that you press the number 1 button if you have something to say, and as Cooper just did a new caller, if you are a new caller, make sure you tell the call screener that so that the call screener can give you me your name, and I can give you the introduction and get you in here. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, MRBOBBY @gmail.com. And your question probably will not be read today because the emails that we've been reading today have been from the past that we're trying to catch up on. But I will let you know when it is and inform you so that you can hear your question being read and a response that Mr. Fuller gives your question. And lastly, you can enter into the chat room. How you do that? Go to blogtalkradio.com, and you want to click on where it says programs. And the program you want, put programs, and you want the Produce Justice Show. You click on that, and then the little box becomes available for you where it says chat. You get in there, and you can chat it up with the people that are in there. Yes, and they are good people in there. Thank you, chatters. Okay, you can get the book by going to ProduceJustice.com. That's the book that Mr. Fuller's been talking about. Two things that come to my mind, Mr. Fuller. Have you heard of the Ben Gurion Canal Project?
No.
Okay, good. I guess. Anyway, and the second one, did you say that there was 2 books that were on your book list? One of them was the Race Code War and Sex Code War. Is that correct?
Yes, something similar to that.
Okay.
But that's what it's called by Kahari and Aharo.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And I just glanced through it. I glanced through one of them, and that is the Word War. And it's something like, it's similar to my word guide, but I only glanced through that one. The one about sex, that's a separate volume.
Yes, sir.
But they're by a radio talk show host and an author and a professor in Columbus, out of Columbus, Ohio. But it has the word code in it, in the title. Kahari and Aharo. It's a lot of books out now, but I glanced through it about his word guide, about the word war, and it's similar to the word guide, but
yes,
I haven't read his book. But from what I saw, what I did read, glancing through it, because I just don't have time to read all the books I have available. It's a book that I think would be worth the price. I'll put it that way.
All righty.
Right. The Race Code War by Kahari and Aharo.
Okay.
A professor out of Columbus, Ohio.
Yes. And don't forget, everybody, don't forget to get Mr. Fuller's book, go to ProduceJustice.com. That is ProduceJustice.com. Now, let's fly on up into Pittsburgh, and we're going to land the A380 in Pittsburgh. I think their airport can take that. And you know who's in Pittsburgh? Terry. All right, Terry. Yeah, here we come. All righty, we have landed. Terry, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Here's a question. First of all, good morning, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Good morning.
Okay. I have a question with regards to someone of color being expected to be inferior in the workplace, but when they're not, Come on, young man. There's like a constant barrage of attempts.
We're having difficulty hearing you, Terry. Could you speak up, sir, please?
Yes.
Okay.
Codified response to someone who is a person of color, functioning at a high level, but being attacked constantly by people who expect them not to be that functional. What's the codified response?
Mr. Fuller?
Here again, I'm not getting the question.
Okay. Terry, could you speak up and be just a little bit clearer, because Mr. Fuller did not entirely hear your question.
You're coming in kind of broken up.
Here's the question, okay? The question is, when you have a person that is of color and they're expected not to be high functioning at work, but when they show they're high functioning at work, they're attacked. What is the codified response for dealing with racists that are attacking a high functioning employee of color?
What? You have high functioning? I can't put it all together in my mind about. Are you saying that you have a person that's at work doing excellent work?
Yes.
And the person is not being compensated for the work that is being done, or what? Is that the question?
No, sir. The attack. The attack. What are the codified responses for the attack?
Oh, the person is doing excellent work, but the person is always attacked.
Yes.
Meaning attacked how?
Every way possible. Verbally.
In other words, okay, let me put it this way. The person is at work, and the work is being criticized all the time.
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes.
Is that the question?
Yes.
Oh, all right. What does the code say?
Yes.
The code says you ask those 4 questions again. You're talking about what? WANT. And as an example, a person who is at work, whatever that is. So you ask, what do you want me to do? Yes. If you're the person who is being attacked for the work you're doing, ask the person who is supposed to be telling you what is supposed to be done. Just ask the person, what do you want me to do right now, right this minute, sir, ma'am? And wait for the answer. And if they say, get the work done, I don't know what the answer is going to be. But don't move to that second question until you get it. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? When you're on a job, somebody wants you to do something. And then you can ask, if that's after they answer the first question, why do you want me to do it? And you may not ask that question because they may have already told you. So you got the answer. So you don't need an answer to a question. When you already have the answer to the question. When you came on the job, they probably told you what they wanted you to do and why they wanted you to do it. That's how I hired you to do it. So, but if that question has to be asked. Why do you want me to do it? Then ask that question. It's just 4 questions. Always the same 4. What do you want me to do? Why do you want me to do it? How do you plan for me to do it? Now, that might be the key on that 3rd question. If you're constantly being criticized, okay, well, you told me what you wanted done, so I'm in the process of doing it. So I don't have to ask that question about why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because that's what I contracted to do. Now that 3rd question, the cements it to that 2nd question. What is your plan for me to do what you want me to do? What's your plan? Because they got a plan, or their plan is to tell you to make the plan. Okay, so you do that. And then what do you expect the constructive result to be? Now, you might have to ask yourself a question. Am I doing what they want me to do when I contracted to do what they want me to do? So that the answer to the question, or to the solving the problem, is somewhere, and I'm just guessing now since I'm not familiar with the situation, in that 3rd question. How do you plan for me to do what you want done? Since, logically speaking, they are complaining about how you are going about doing what they want done. But are you doing it according to your plan or their plan? Which way? It's just 2 ways to go. Their way or your way. So you can always go to that 3rd question and ask them, how do you plan for me to do what you want done? They'll say, do it, I don't know what the answer might be. But that seems to be where the central problem is. You got the first 2 questions answered. What do you want me to do? They told you. Why do they want you to do it? Because they say, that's what I hired you for, because I don't want to do it myself. That's why I hire people. Or I choose not to do it myself. Or I don't have time. They got their own reasons. People got their reasons for hiring you. So that's their reason. And they can tell you, I don't have time to do it myself. That's why I'm hiring you to do it. Okay, well, what's your plan for me doing it? That's where the problem is. Evidently, they're saying that you're not going according to the plan, which means they got a better plan. That's all it could mean, but you got to ask them that.
Yes. Okay.
How do you plan for me to do it? What's your plan? That seems to be. I'm just going through the codified motions now, a hypothetical, because I don't know the details of everything you're talking about. But the person keeps complaining. Well, name one thing they're complaining about: how you're going about doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, okay, well, what's your plan, sir? I'm going about it according to my plan, and you're not satisfied with that. Well, what's your plan for me to do what you want done? That's your question. What's your plan for me to do what you hired me to do? What is your plan?
Okay.
And just wait for the answer.
Wait.
Because you want to produce what? Out of whatever you do, the most constructive result. So what is the plan for producing that? Where is it? Who's it coming from? Am I to come up with a new plan or what? I'll do that. But what do you want me to do? Why do you want me to do it? We got those questions answered. But we got a problem here, number 3, and that's a big one. Where is the plan for me doing what you want me to do? That's the only thing. Logically speaking. That's following that, what I call the 4 questions. The key to everything in the universe is in those 4 questions.
Yes, sir.
What do you want? Among squirrels, they're asking that question. One squirrel talking to another. What do you want me to do? Why do you want me to do it? Now, you want me to bring the nuts up here and put them in the nest or not? All right? See, that's an embellished question that covers the first 3.
Okay.
What do you want me to do? Why do you want me to do it? How do you plan for me to do it? And what do you expect the constructive result to be so that we don't do what? Have these arguments about what I am doing. It's all about the doing part.
Yeah, or not doing. All righty. All right, Terry from Pittsburgh, thank you very much. Let's see. VGQ from Quincy says this before we get back to the phones. Revisiting Mr. Fuller, the way you talk, it seems that you don't interact with people. I've heard you say you watch television and read. Now, respectfully, I don't see the things you're talking about on my day-to-day with people. Now, I do admit that I've seen it go on sometimes, but it's not common at all. Mr. Fuller, I really think if you would get out and interact with people, you would see this is true. The way we are depicted on the news and in the paper and on social media, Mr. Fuller, is not how it really is in real life. VGQ from Quincy X. All righty. 516-453-9921 is the number you call to get in the remaining 12 minutes. And guess what? From Pittsburgh to Richmond, Virginia, I'm hoping. And that would be Christopher. Christopher, let me see here. Yep, okay, you're there. Christopher, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
I would like to make a comment, though.
Yeah.
Just before that.
Okay.
About getting out and paying attention to what's going on now.
Mm-hmm.
I have done that, and I have come to the conclusion that, tentatively, that the caller is correct. That there are a lot of things in transition now. The interaction on a day-to-day basis. That's what I've noticed. I pay attention, and I'm supposed to be searching for the truth. I see a lot of black people here in Washington, D.C., may not be true in other places, interacting with white people in ways that could be considered going in the correct direction of making some, and I don't like to use this word very much, progress in doing the correct thing. Doing the right thing, as Mr. Spike Lee would say. And trying to be harmonious in their interactions with each other. Mostly people under 30.
Oh, okay.
I see it. And I am noticing that. And I do see where this is significant and needs to be nourished. White people, non-white people, people period, doing things that seem to be trying to do the correct thing in their interactions with each other. And that should be nourished as much as you possibly can. Feed that as much as you can.
All righty.
Now go for the question.
Okay, hopefully Quincy X can check that out. Okay, Christopher in Richmond, go ahead there.
Hey, I know we are pressed for time, but I actually had two questions. But the first question is, have either of you heard about the movie from 1971 called Goodbye, Uncle Tom?
I've heard about that movie, but I've never seen it.
Okay. The second question was, do you know anything about, like, the racial dislocation of indigenous people, like basically being sent to Oklahoma, where there's basically barren land and there's nowhere to plant crops? Did you hear anything about that when you were growing up?
I was born in Oklahoma. I didn't leave there until I was in my late 20s. You know, I'd been in the Army and come back there and stayed there. I was born, went to school there. So there were, in my elementary school, there were Indians there. My mother taught in a school near Stillwater, Oklahoma. She taught in a school that was mostly Indian. So I know that. So what is it for me to know other than Indians everywhere, people who are called Indians or indigenous people or Native Americans, called by all different kinds of slogans. I mean, but among themselves they would call Muskogee, Creek, Chickasha, Choctaw, right. Among themselves, but the white supremacists had all kinds of slangs for them.
I'm sorry, Neely. The reason why I was asking is because it just seems like they're trying to classify us like as blacks in a way to kind of erase our existence from this land, like as if we all came from another landmass, Africa, and we weren't from here, which is why white supremacists or white people just usually just say, go back to Africa, when it's kind of like deleting the fact that we were kind of already here, I guess.
Well, now this is just my judgment, because so many lies being told. My judgment is all so-called classifications of people for millions of years have been everywhere. And that's the way I see it, logically speaking. When you start talking about this tribe and that tribe and this part tribal and these herds of people, and that's just like when we talk about burial grounds. I say, I'm standing on it. So you standing on the burial ground right now of your ancestors? Yes. Think about my ancestors, millions of years. You better believe they're buried under me, wherever I happen to step. How many ancestors have I had? Do you know the exact number of people that were here before me? And when they died and where? And where they're buried? They're buried somewhere. I mean, some remains in places where we just call it dust, because there ain't nothing there. I mean, they were an ancestor at one time, but you can't tell them from nothing. You can never find their burial ground because they have turned into something that doesn't completely unrecognizable as a person. That's pure logic. Logic tells me that. I mean, you don't have to go to no different university and say, I'm going to find the burial ground of Neely Fuller's ancestors. I say, you're standing on them right now. You say, well, I'm in Philadelphia. All of your ancestors are hey, my ancestors are in Alaska. They are in the North Pole. They're up under the ocean every ocean, Red Sea, you name it. Oceans, I mean, bodies of water, streams and whatnot that nobody haven't even seen. Every inch of it is one of my ancestors. They're everywhere. Duh.
Okay. All righty. Did that give you what you needed there, Christopher?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
But I'm going to say this for the codified person. When people ask me about my ancestor, now not specifically about burial, but I say my ancestor invented breathing. When people start getting ready to start talking about what their ancestors did and all, I say my ancestor invented breathing. Now, trump that. Don't get no better than breathing. Neely Fuller's ancestor invented breathing. Now, somebody, logically speaking, is going to say, well, that applies to everybody. Bingo. Think about what you just said. That applies to everybody, and it applies to Neely Fuller. You just want to start talking about ancestors, I can say it in one sentence. My ancestor invented breathing. Now we can go and start talking about something else. Now that's the codified. That's in the code book. See what I mean? Your ancestor invented breathing. Why? Where's the evidence? I'm breathing.
You're breathing.
That's it. That's the evidence.
All righty. Thank you, Victor. And last call, or rather, Chris. Let's go to Victor in Canada again. All right, Victor. Got about a couple of minutes, and that's it. What's your question for Mr. Fuller?
Oh, hi, Mr. Bobby. I just wanted to ask Mr. Fuller about what makes a code really work, because from my understanding, you have to be able to practice true self-respect, and that means telling yourself the truth even when it hurts. So I would think that that's one component of the code. And then with the code, when it comes to the code, you have to make your codes work in all areas of the activity. So I was wanting just to confirm that with Mr. Fuller.
Yes, he makes the code work, just like I just did just a minute ago, talking about ancestors. I don't need to take up a whole college course on ancestors. I can do that in 1 second, or 3 seconds, or whatever time it took me to do it. My ancestor invented breathing. Enough said. Don't get no better than breathing. You can't. No inventor invented anything better than breathing. So if I say my ancestor invented breathing, where's the evidence for the second question? I'm breathing. Duh. That's the end of that. You can close that college. I don't need to go anywhere to learn that. I just said it. And it doesn't get no better than that.
No better than that. Okay, got to leave it there. So thank you, Victor from Canada. Mr. Fuller, I'm going to give you the final word here in the minute that we have remaining in the program. So have at it.
Yes. Go to producejustice.com, and if you're going to buy anything during this so-called holy season, and you see what's happening in this holy season without even looking around very far. A whole lot of gunfire. Holy gunfire. Okay? So go to producejustice.com and try to get the textbook if you don't get nothing else doing when you spend your money. Get that.
All righty.
Right.
And you can get that by going to producejustice.com. Thank you all for participation. Thank you all for your phone calls and for your Gmails. And forgive us for mistakes we made. We made many, but we'll try to do better the next time. Yes. So, Mr. Fuller, final word in the last 10 seconds.
Producejustice.com. That's what you're supposed to be breathing for.
Everybody have a good week. Producejustice.com. Thank you.